Good morning, children.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good
Good,
morning.
Good morning.
good morning, children. So in this question, an open box is 80 centimeters long, 65 centimeters wide, 45 centimeters high, is made of 2.5 centimeters thick wood. So this is a wooden box. It's an open box. There is no lid. It's an open box. The material this box is made of is wood. And the thickness of the wood in the box is 2.5 centimeters. So see here, I cannot show the 3D, but it's something like this. Okay, so this is the, see, I can't say that this is the wooden box, but this is the cross section. This is how it looked like, the wooden box. See, the wood is thick, this portion. The wood is thick. It's 2.5 centimeters thick. See here. So the thickness you can see it below also. The wood is thick here, 2.5 centimeters thick. Here below also, 2.5 centimeters thick, this portion. 2.5 centimeters thick. This portion is 2.5 centimeters thick. This one is 2.5 centimeters thick. This one is 2.5 centimeters thick. The thickness of the wood is 2.5 centimeters. Now, so this box will have two dimensions, one inner or internal dimensions and one outer or external dimensions. The length, breadth, and the height of the box will be different from the inside and outside. The box is made of wood, which is 2.5 centimeters thick. It's a box, so you can place something inside the box. Inside it's empty. You can place some, it's a box, right? So it's empty inside. You can place something inside the box. So coming to the dimensions, length, breadth, and height, they will be different outside and different inside because of the thickness of the wood. If you make a box out of paper, the inner dimensions, the internal length, breadth, height, and the external length, breadth, height will be the same because paper is thin and its thickness is, so small that it can be ignored. When you make a box out of paper, when you make an open box using paper, the internal dimensions and the external dimensions will be the same. That is when you measure the internal length, breadth, height, and when you measure the external length, breadth, and height, they'll be the same because paper is very thin that you can ignore the thickness. But it's sizable, 2.5 centimeters thick. So the size, the thickness of the wood cannot be ignored. It's 2.5 centimeters thick. So that gives rises to different internal and external dimensions. Now let's calculate the external dimensions. An open box is 80 centimeters long. That represents the external length. 65 centimeters wide, because they're talking about an open box. When nothing is mentioned, it's the external dimensions. 65 centimeters wide. The breadth is 65 centimeters and 45 centimeters high. See, when you're made a box out of wood and you give out the dimensions, you will be measuring the external dimensions. When nothing is specified, if it is internal, it will be mentioned internal. Nothing is mentioned. So when you're measuring the length and height of the box, they are the external dimensions. The external. So I've used capital L, B, H to represent external dimensions, small l, B, H to represent the internal dimensions. So what is given are all external dimensions, 80, 65, and 45. 80, capital L, capital B, 65, capital H, 45. Now coming to the internal dimensions. So since the box is 2.5 centimeters thick, from here to here, the length is 80 centimeters. The length is 80 centimeters. The inner length is this one. This is the internal length. This is the internal length. The internal length will be the external length 80 minus the thickness 2.5 here and minus the thickness 2.5 here. See, this is the internal length. This is the internal length. From here to here is the internal length inside the box. This is the external length, the length of the box outside. This is the external length. Now from here to here, the external length is 80. How do we get the internal length? This length, 8. I'm sorry. How do we get the internal length? This length inside the box. So it will be the external dimension. The external length 80 centimeters minus 2.5 minus 2.5. 80 minus the thickness on either sides. 80, the external length 80 minus the thickness of the wood on either sides. So minus 2.5 minus 2.5. Which is nothing but 80 minus 5, 75 centimeters will be the internal length. Now I can't show the breadth. I'm not showing the drawing, but that side also will be the external breadth 65 minus the thickness on either sides. Minus the thickness on either sides, 2.5, 2.5. The internal breadth also will be the external breadth minus the thickness 2 times, because you'll find the thickness of the wood on both the sides. Similar to the length. So the internal breadth will be the external breadth minus the thickness on either sides. So 60 centimeters, 65 minus 5, 60 centimeters. And now coming to the height. This is the external height. The external height minus the thickness once will give you the internal height. The external height, that is 45 centimeters minus the thickness only once, because you'll have to take away the thickness at the bottom of the box, not at the top, because it's going to be like this. An open box would be like this. An open box would be like this. It's open. So it will be the external height. The external height 45 centimeters minus the thickness of the wood at the bottom. This one. See, this full thing is 85. Oh my God, why am I misreading everything? The external height is 45. The external height is 45 minus 2.5. This one. This portion will be the internal height. So this height, external height of 45 centimeters minus the thickness of 2.5 centimeters will be the internal height, which is 42.5 centimeters. If it was a closed box, then you have to subtract the thickness for the length, breadth, and the height 2 times. When it's an open box, in the height you subtract the thickness only once, because there's no lid. If there was a lid, then again there the height will be reduced, because in the lid again the thickness of the wood will be 2.5 centimeters. That will still reduce the internal height. If the box is a closed box, similar situation but a closed box, then the internal height will be 45 minus 2.5 2 times. In other words, from the external dimensions, you will have to subtract the thickness 2 times for length, breadth, and height if it's a closed box. If it's a closed box, in the same under the same conditions, 80, 65, 45, 2.5. If it's a closed box, then for the length, to calculate the internal length, breadth, and the height, we need to subtract the thickness 2 times. But since it's an open box, only for length and breadth we subtract the thickness 2 times. For the height, it's the external height minus the thickness only once, because there's no lid, it's open. So the internal height will be the external height minus 2.5, minus 2.5. If it's a closed box, to find small l, small b, small h, you should subtract the thickness 2 times from capital B, capital L, capital B, and capital H. If it's open, for height alone, to find the internal height alone, you must subtract the thickness only once because it's open. So now here, we need to find the capacity of the box. Capacity of the box is how much the box can contain. It's something to do with the inside of the box, capacity of the box. So clearly the capacity of the box is the internal volume of the box. Capacity of the box is the internal volume of the box. So how do we find the internal volume? Volume of a cuboid, LBH. Use the internal dimensions because we need to find the internal volume. Internal dimensions, small l, small b, small h. The product will be the capacity of the box. Volume of the wood. Volume of the wood, as always, as we have seen in the case of a cylindrical shell. In the case of a cylindrical shell, that is a cylinder which is made of some material which is thick, like a pipe which is open at both ends. If a pipe is made of iron, a cylindrical pipe made of iron, if we need to find the volume of the iron in the pipe, it's the external volume minus the internal volume. The external volume of the cylinder minus the internal volume of the cylinder will give you the volume of the iron used to make the pipe. Similarly, here the volume of the wood will be the external volume minus the internal volume. External volume LBH, capital LBH, internal volume small LBH. You have the dimensions here. And that gives you 42,750 centimeter cube. The weight of the box. Weight of the box, it's given that 100 centimeter cube weighs 8 grams. 100 centimeter cube weighs 8 grams. That means 100 centimeter. We can do it like this. You don't have to remember this formula and all that. It's something to do with physics. So the weight of the box, 100 centimeter cube, 8 grams. What's the volume of the 47250? 47250 centimeter cube, how many grams? 100 centimeter cube of wood weighs 8 grams. 100 centimeter cube of wood weighs 8 grams. Then 42,750. 42,750 centimeter cube of wood will weigh how many grams? So it will be 42,750 into 8 divided by 100. 750 into 8 divided by 100. Like you always do, you know, like if 1 centimeter cube is or weighs 8 grams. Then 42 750 centimeter cube will weigh, if 1 centimeter cube weighs 8 grams, then 42 750 centimeter cube will weigh 42 750 into 8 grams. Into 8 divided by 1 actually it is. It is this number into this divided by 1. It's this into this. It's like cross multiplying. It's like cross multiplying. This into this divided by this. Am I audible, children?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So similarly here, because this is 100 centimeter cube, it will be 42 750 into 8 divided by 100. 42 750 into 8 divided by 100. Or you can use a proportion. I told you this earlier. If you don't know how to handle it, so see here 100 centimeter cube is to 8 grams is as to 42 750 centimeter cube. How many grams? X grams. Write the proportion. 100 centimeter cube, 8 grams. 100 centimeter cube, 8 grams. 42750 centimeter cube, how many grams? Product of extremes is equal to product of means. And get the answer. So you can see it there. 100x is equal to 100x is equal to 8 into 42 750. X will be equal to 8 into 42 750 divided by 100. Okay, you have already written this answer in your book yesterday. See, some of you, am I audible, children?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So open box. For length and breadth, you should always subtract whether it's an open box or a closed box. Whether it's an open box or a closed box, length and breadth, you should always subtract the thickness 2 times. Only for height, you should be careful. If it's an open box, subtract the thickness once to get the internal height. If it's a closed box, then you have to, like for the length and breadth, you should subtract the thickness 2 times to get the internal height. So the capacity of the box. Capacity is the how much it can hold. So that depends on the internal dimensions, not on the external dimensions. The capacity of the box depends on the internal dimensions. Capacity of the box depends on the internal dimensions. So it's the internal volume. And since it's a cuboid, LBH. How do we know it's a cuboid? Because we have given the dimensions like length, breadth, and height. So it's cuboidal. Because we're given the length in the question, we are given the length, breadth, and height. The box is cuboidal. Volume of the wood will be the external volume minus internal volume. Weight is, it's given that 100 centimeter cube weighs 8 grams. So the weight, the volume of the wood is this one, 42 750. So 100 centimeter cube, 8 grams. 42 750 centimeter cube, how many grams? That will be the weight of the wood or the weight of the wood in the box. The external circumference of a hollow cylindrical roller, And you can see it is made of, if it is made of 5 centimeter thick metal sheet. So the metal sheet is 5 centimeters thick. That is W, the value of W. Clearly, it's a cylindrical shell. It's a hollow cylinder where the material with which the cylindrical roller is made is thick. The thickness, that is, the wall is thick and the thickness cannot be ignored. It's 5 centimeters thick. The external circumference of a hollow. See, you need to identify what solid is mentioned in the question. The external circumference, okay, leave that external circumference of a hollow cylindrical roller. Hollow cylindrical roller. So exactly like a sellotape. Hollow cylindrical roller, exactly like a sellotape. And the thickness of the wall of the roller is 5 centimeters. Its width is 91 centimeters. Width meaning the height. The width is the height. The width of the roller is this one. This is the width of the roller, 91 centimeters. So if you make it stand, that's the height of the roller. If you make it stand, that becomes the height of the roller. See, we say width or breadth if it is horizontal. And the roller is going to go horizontal on the, for whatever purpose it's made on the road. So the cylindrical roller is going to go horizontal. It will roll on the road. It's a roller. So it rolls. That means it's moving horizontally, not vertically. It's not upright. The roller is not upright like a cylinder. The roller, though it is cylindrical, it's not upright. When you draw a cylinder, we normally draw like this. When we say cylinder, we normally draw like this. So it's not upright like a cylinder. It's going to move horizontally like this. The roller is going to move horizontally like this. So since it's horizontal, it's not vertical. When it's vertical, we say height. When it's horizontal, it's cylindrical, but it's horizontal. So then we say width. The height is referred to as the width. But you should again be careful, what 5 centimeters is and what 91 centimeters is. This width of the width of the roller. The width of the roller is this one from here to here. The width of the roller, that is the height. If it was vertical, you will say height of the roller. So that is the height of the cylinder. Since it's horizontal, we say width of the roller is 91 centimeters. So this is the height. Height is 91 centimeters. If it is made of 5 centimeters thick metal sheet, the metal sheet is 5 centimeters thick. The roller is made of some metal sheet. That metal sheet is 5 centimeters thick. Very clearly given. So we need to be careful while reading the information. The metal sheet is 5 centimeters thick. The metal sheet. So W is 5 centimeters. So you need to spend some time to read the question. Now there is the external circumference. See, information is given. See, either you are given the length, breadth, height, or the radius and height, or the radius straight away, and you're asked to find volume, surface area. That is one type. You're asked to find the volume or surface area of a cylinder, and you're given the radius and height. So you have the radius and height. You'll have to find the volume or CSA of a cylinder. Is easy. Simply write the formula, substitute, and get the answer. But supposing the question is something about a cylinder, but radius is not given, or height is not given, or both radius and height is not given. That means some other information will be provided in the question to help you find the radius and height. Only when you find the radius and height using that information can you find, whatever is asked about the cylinder volume or CSA of the cylinder. Read the question carefully. Let's read it again. So we understood that this one 5 centimeter. See, the first thing is the solid is a cylindrical shell. It's a cylindrical shell. The roller is open at both the ends. The road roller, the cylindrical roller is open at both the ends like a sellotape. When you roll the sellotape on the ground or on the table, how does it go? Like that. But the roller will probably be heavy. It cannot go as fast as a sellotape. Cylindrical roller, hollow. So that means it's open at both the ends. It's cylindrical. And the material it is made of is thick. It's made of some metal sheet. Some metal, iron, some metal. And the sheet is thick. It's 5 centimeters thick. That means the thickness of the sheet will be the wall of the cylinder. The thickness will be the wall of the cylinder. So W is equal to 5 centimeters. So W is equal to 5 centimeters. The height of the cylinder is 91. The width is nothing but the height of the cylinder. It's called width because it's horizontal. The cylinder is horizontal. If you make it stand, then you will say height of the cylinder. Now the external circumference, yeah, because there are two rings on the, there are two rings. The cylindrical roller has two rings, one on the top, one at the bottom. And the rings have two circles in them, one inner circle and one outer circle, which is why external circumference. Because the cylindrical roller has two rings, one on the top and one at the bottom. And the rings have two circles. The rings are made up of two concentric circles. So circles, no, two circles are there. So whose circumference? The external circumference, not the circumference of the inner circle, the circumference of the outer circle. So that means circumference is 2 pi r, but because it is external, it is 2 pi capital R. It's 2 pi capital R. Because external circumference means of a circle. Circumference means of a circle. Circumference is 220. With circumference, there are two circles. Whose circumference? External. Internal circumference means 2 pi smaller. So children, this information is given to help you find the radius. So see here, it's very clear. This is what is given in the question. 2 pi capital R is 220, W is 5 and H is 91. So from this, we'll find the value of capital R. Once you know capital R, once you find capital R, using capital R and W, you can find smaller. You can find smaller. And you know the H. So you know the value of capital R and you know the value of small r and the value of H. Now the volume of the metal is pi H. So we have all the values that have to be substituted in the formula. We have all the values that have to be substituted in the formula. This is the formula to find the volume of the metal in the hollow cylindrical roller. So we know H is given in the question 91. R we found whatever. And this R also using capital R and W we find smaller. And then substitute and get the value. I did not explain these two questions yesterday, these two answers yesterday. I made you copy. Now I've done my part. Now it's your turn to ask questions and get it more clear. So to find the volume of the metal sheet, because it's a cylindrical shell, this is the formula. This is the formula. Fine, this is the formula. But what's the value of H? 91. What's the value of capital R? I don't know. Value of smaller, I don't know. Then if you don't know these two R's, you first find the two R's and then use the formula. And to find the R's, you are given this information. 220 is given to help you find capital R. And using capital R and W, we find smaller. Now we are ready with all the values. Write the formula, substitute, calculate. So yesterday's, classwork submission.
Ma'am, yesterday I couldn't attend the class because of exam, ma'am. I had to study.
Okay, yeah. I didn't see you yesterday. Class.
I also didn't attend yesterday's class.
Correct, yeah.
Ma'am, I too didn't attend yesterday's class.
Yeah, why Shreyas?
Ma'am, yes,
Exam.
ma'am. For the past 2 class, I didn't attend.
Yeah, exams, huh?
Yes, ma'am. Exams going on.
When are you finishing?
Monday, ma'am.
You have an exam on Monday, is it?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you have?
Max, ma'am.
Oh, your portions?
Ma'am, volumes and surface area, probability and polynomials.
Okay, fine. Yeah, so I was trying to talk about yesterday's classwork submission, not yesterday's, in general. See, we don't write the question. I told you if the question is from, see, you know all this. So it's just reflecting your personality or trying to be careless. Extra sums, you need to write the question. Okay, I send the questions on WhatsApp, but it's not in your book. So when we work questions outside the textbook, you need to have the question and the answer. You have the answer, no question. And then you share the pictures in some random order. Why don't you do it in the same order as we handle the questions in the class? As we had handled the questions in the class. But then it's easy for me to make out if it's complete or not. And some of us, if we have not submitted the previous class work, that also is submitted. Don't do that. If you have not submitted the earlier, the classwork of the earlier session, leave it. Please submit only that the classwork of the session that happened that day. So sometimes it may be like you're just taking some random pictures and sharing with me, and I'm like, okay, I just look at it and put your name in the list. I do look at your work. I do look at your work, but sometimes I don't understand what you send, and sometimes the pictures are so blurred that I can't make out anything. And I don't want to get into any argument based on all this, I don't put your name and then you say I have completed, but I say something else. And see, so I just thought I'd just make it clear in the meeting that in future, please, so after today's class, send the notes of today's session, not anything extra. Please try to send in the same order as we have worked the sums in the class. If it's from NCERT also, you can write the question. Okay, but there you have a choice. You can give the reference number and do only the answer. But otherwise, children, you have to write the question. So that means you decide that you're not going to work out these in future. That's why you're not writing the question. Because you've decided or you know for sure that who's going to work all this. If that is the attitude, then you will not write the question. I have a few names in my tongue tip, but I don't want to mention in the class. Maybe next time you'll just force me and get it out of my mouth. Some of us, so much of spacing, 4 lines, the answer is over. I don't know. If you scribble the answer somewhere else and just show the main steps here, I don't know. Be responsible, children. Remember that you need the question and the answer worked neatly for future reference. I'm not wasting your time by teaching you some rubbish. All this is important. You know it, and that's why you're all here. Please act responsible. That's all I can say. Yeah, class, use the emoji, raise your hand. Nivedita, Sangamitra, Arav, Kanishka, Shivani, Ananya, Nikita, Pratiksha, Shreyas, Vasudevan, Pranav and Hitesh. All right. Okay, so let's do quadrilaterals now. It's been a long time. We've been doing only volumes and surface areas. Now this is the next exercise, exercise 8.2 from NCERT. So to prove the situations in this exercise, you need to know two important theorems. One is called the midpoint theorem. One is called the midpoint theorem. Midpoint theorem. And the other is called the converse. Converse of midpoint theorem. So to prove the situations in this exercise 8.2 from NCERT, we need to know the results by the midpoint theorem and the converse of midpoint theorem. We're not going to see the theorems in the class. I'll just tell you what the result is. Any triangle ABC. Any triangle ABC. We are given that E is the midpoint of AB. We are also given that F is the midpoint of AC. Triangle ABC given, we are talking about the midpoint theorem. We'll understand the statement and the result we get using this theorem. The proof, we'll see it later. We'll understand and then I'll tell you the statement of the theorem. Now we are given a triangle ABC. All right, given triangle ABC. E is the midpoint of AB, given. We are given that E is the midpoint of AB. We are also given that F is the midpoint of AC. We need to be given the midpoints of any two sides of the triangle. Of the three sides, you should know the midpoints of any two sides. If this information is given to you, that is, you have a triangle. Sorry. So if you have a triangle and you know the midpoints of any two sides of this triangle, then these results follow. Now, when you connect the points E and F, you get a line segment EF. When you connect the points E and F, you get a line segment EF. Now, this line segment EF will be parallel to the third side BC. Why do we call this the third side BC? Because we call this one side of the triangle. AB is one side of the triangle where E is the midpoint. AC is the other side of the triangle where F is the midpoint. So we call this the third side. Then the line segment joining the midpoints will be parallel to the third side, and the length of EF, or the length of the line segment joining the midpoints, will be equal to half the length of the third side. Like if this is 20 centimeters, BC is 20, EF will be 10. EF is parallel to the third side BC, and EF is equal to half the length of the third side BC. Here we have a triangle We have a triangle PQR. Given triangle PQR, given that S is the midpoint of QR, given P is the midpoint of PQ, given triangle PQR, we are given that S is the midpoint of QR, we are given that T is the midpoint of PQ. This is given to us. See, we need to know the midpoints of any two sides of the triangle. A triangle and the midpoints of any two sides of the triangle. So we are given that S is the midpoint of QR. We are also given that T is the midpoint of QP. If this is given, then these are the results by midpoint theorem. Why midpoint theorem? Because we know the midpoint of QR and we know the midpoint of QP. So midpoint theorem. Now the results are join the lines, join the midpoints S and T. Join the midpoints S and T. Join the midpoints S and T. Now this line segment which you get by joining the midpoints S and T will be parallel to the third side. This is the third side now because this is one side of the triangle. This is the other side of the triangle and this is the third side of the triangle. That side where the midpoint is not known as the third side. That side where the midpoint is not given is the third side of the triangle. So ST, the line segment joining the midpoints, will be parallel to the third side. Here the third side is PR. And the length of ST will be equal to half the length of PR. So if PR is 15 centimeters, this will be 7.5 centimeters. ST will be 7.5 centimeters. The statement goes like this. The line segment joining the midpoints of any two sides of a triangle. See the line segment joining the midpoints of any two sides of a triangle. This much is given, should be given to you. Now the result is parallel to the third side. That line segment joining the midpoints is parallel to the third side and equal to half the length of the third side. And equal to half the length of the third side. This is the statement of the midpoint theorem. The line segment joining the midpoints of any two sides of a triangle is parallel to the third side and equal to half the length of the third side. So let's take this triangle ABC. This should be given to us. See, given means all this should be provided in the question. To use the midpoint theorem, these must be given in the question. Some triangle. So here triangle ABC. Then midpoints of two sides must be given to you. Midpoints of two sides. Supposing this, the midpoint of AC is given to you, P. And supposing the midpoint of BC is given to you, R. So this much should be given to you. If you know this information, you can use the midpoint theorem. If you have a triangle and the midpoints of two sides of the triangle, you can use the midpoint theorem. Now, according to the theorem, the line segment joining the midpoint, so PR, the line segment joining the midpoints, that is PR, will be parallel to the third side. Third side is that side where the midpoint was not known. So this line segment joining the midpoints, PR, is parallel to the third side AB, and the same line segment PR will be equal to half the length of the line segment AB. PR is parallel to AB and PR is equal to half AB. Is it understood, children?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, children, just a minute. Children, tell me what is to be given and what are the results by the midpoint theorem. Given, I'll start. Given triangle ABC. Next. Given what?
Ma'am, M and N are midpoint.
M is the midpoint of
AB and
AB. Then
N is the midpoint of BC.
N is the midpoint of BC. This much should be given to us. If these are given to us, then what is the result by the midpoint theorem, or what are the results by the midpoint theorem?
Ma'am, Mn is half of AC.
Mn is equal to half of AC. Then one more result.
Mn is parallel to AC.
Mn is parallel to AC. Mn is parallel to AC and Mn is equal to half of AC. These are the two results we get by the midpoint theorem. Now let's see the converse of midpoint theorem. Converse. The converse of midpoint theorem. What is to be given and what is the result by the converse of midpoint theorem? The converse of midpoint theorem. See, like in the somebody's mic is enabled. Please disable your mic. Like for the midpoint theorem, we need to be given two things: midpoint of one side, midpoint of another side. Two things must be given to us. Of course, triangle, then midpoint of one side, midpoint of another side. These two things must be given. And we have two results. So that is, we should have two things in given and two results we get. Given, we have two things: midpoint of one side, midpoint of another side. Results also we have two: parallel and half. In the converse of midpoint theorem, we need to be given two things, but we'll have only one result. We should have two things. Only then we can use the converse of midpoint theorem, but result is only one. Okay. So what is to be given? Triangle ABC, in which we know the midpoint of only one side of the triangle. We know the midpoint of any one side. So let's say that P is the midpoint of AB. This should be given. P is the midpoint of AB should be given. Only one midpoint will be given for converse of midpoint theorem. P is the midpoint of AB. Then through P, it should be given that there is a line drawn parallel to BC. It should be given. Through P, a line should be drawn parallel to BC. And that line will intersect the third side somewhere. Okay, let's call it R. Through the midpoint P, it should be given that there is a line drawn parallel to the second side BC. Then when you draw a line through P parallel to BC, it will meet the third side somewhere. We have to prove that R is a midpoint of AC. So we should be given two things. P is the midpoint of AB should be given, and PR parallel to BC also should be given. Then the only result is R is the midpoint of AC. The statement goes like this: the line drawn through the midpoint of any one side of the triangle parallel to the second side bisects the third side. A line drawn, look at the figure, a line drawn through the midpoint of any one side of the triangle. So here that one side is AB and the midpoint is P. So through P we have a line drawn through the midpoint P we have a line, and that line is drawn parallel to the second side BC. So if there's a line drawn through the midpoint of one side of a triangle parallel to the second side, so much should be given to you. Then the result is it bisects the third side. That is, R is the midpoint of AC. So given triangle ABC, that should be given for both. Okay, let's leave that. P is the midpoint of AB should be given. PR parallel to BC should be given. Then the result is R is the midpoint of AC. See, these results are, there is a proof for these statements. We are not seeing the proof now. I'm just telling you I'm just familiarizing the statement and what is to be given and the results. We'll just solve the proofs in the exercise and then come back to the theorems. Now I'll give you another figure. Converse of midpoint theorem. Converse of midpoint theorem. Now supposing tell me what is to be given and to use the converse of midpoint theorem. What is to be given and what is the result? Given yes, children, given what?
Ma'am,
In triangle
PQ and
PQR, S is the midpoint, ma'am.
S is the midpoint of PR. Given S is the midpoint of PR. Next.
ma'am, PQ and ST are parallel, ma'am.
Through the midpoint S, there's a line ST parallel to PQ. So ST parallel to PQ. S is the midpoint of PR should be known. ST parallel to PQ also should be given. Then what is the result?
Ma'am, T is the midpoint of RQ, ma'am.
T is the midpoint of RQ. Given S is the midpoint of PR. It should be given that S is the midpoint of PR. It should also be given that through S, this line ST is parallel to the second side PQ. If these two are given to us, S is the midpoint of PR given, ST parallel to PQ given, then the only result by the converse of midpoint theorem is T is the midpoint of QR or RQ. Now let's see both together. Now for the same thing, now tell me if okay. What is to be given to use the midpoint theorem? What is to be given to use a midpoint theorem? Midpoint theorem, two midpoints must be given to us. So given
Ma'am, M is the midpoint of AC and N is the midpoint of BC.
M is the midpoint of AC, N is the midpoint of BC must be given to us. Then Shreyas, what is the result by the midpoint theorem?
Ma'am, Mn is parallel to AB, ma'am.
And Mn is equal to
Half of AB, ma'am.
half of AB, correct. Mn is parallel to AB and Mn is equal to half of AB. Mn is parallel to AB, Mn is equal to half of AB. Converse of midpoint theorem, what can you say is given for the same figure?
M is the midpoint of AC and Mn is parallel to AB, ma'am. We need to prove N is the midpoint of BC, ma'am.
Very good, very good. Nivedita, right? Very good. So given M is the midpoint of AC and Mn parallel to AB. Mn is parallel to AB. Then the result by the converse of midpoint theorem is N is the midpoint of BC. N is the midpoint of BC. just go through given and the results. Won't see the construction now. As we discussed, given triangle ABC, D is the midpoint of AB, E is the midpoint of AC. Then we, using the midpoint theorem, but the result by the midpoint theorem is D will be parallel to BC and D is equal to half of BC. Converse of midpoint theorem, you can see here, given triangle ABC, D is the midpoint of AB, DE is parallel to BC, D midpoint of AB and DE parallel to BC. Then the only result is E is the midpoint of AC. This is the construction, ignore all this. See only the triangle ABC. E is the midpoint of AC. So let's use these two theorems, the midpoint theorem and the converse of midpoint theorem, to prove the situations in exercise 8.2 NCERT. So here we are given ABCD is a quadrilateral. The figure is given alongside. ABCD is a quadrilateral. Okay, ABCD is a quadrilateral. PQRS are the midpoints of the sides AB, BC. CP is the midpoint of AB. Q is the midpoint of BC. R is the midpoint of CD. And S is the midpoint of AD. PQRS are the midpoints of AB, BC, CD, and AD. AC is the diagonal. Show that SR is parallel to AC and SR is equal to half of AC. So this one, when you read it itself, you can make out that these two results can be achieved using the midpoint theorem. SR is parallel to AC, SR is equal to half of AC. So you must see, now we are given a quadrilateral, but these theorems can be used only in a triangle. We are given a quadrilateral, but these theorems can be used only in a triangle. So you know that a diagonal divides the quadrilateral into two triangles. Diagonal divides the quadrilateral into two triangles. So if the diagonal is not connected, you should connect the diagonal. Why should you connect the diagonal? Because only then you'll have two triangles from the quadrilateral. The theorems can be applied only in a triangle, not in a quadrilateral. Okay. So now to get the first result, to get this result, we need to take up the triangle ADC. We need to take up the triangle ADC. In triangle ADC, S is the midpoint of AD given. R is the midpoint of CD given. Then by midpoint theorem, SR is parallel to AC and SR is equal to half of AC. That's all. In triangle ADC, we have taken a triangle. Two midpoints are known. S is the midpoint of AD. That's given to us in the question. R is the midpoint of CD is also given to us. Then by the midpoint theorem, SR is parallel to the third side AC and SR is equal to half of AC. Next, we need to show that PQ is equal to SR. PQ is equal to SR. Now apply the midpoint theorem in this triangle also. Please apply the midpoint theorem in this triangle. Tell me the results. Tell me two midpoints.
Ma'am, midpoints are PQ,
Midpoints of P and Q.
Yeah, P is the midpoint of
AB, ma'am.
AB.
AB. Now the triangle is ABC. In triangle ABC, P is the midpoint of AB.
AB.
Q is the midpoint of
AB.
CB.
BC. So then the line segment joining the midpoints. This is the line segment joining the midpoints. PQ. Because P is the midpoint of one side, Q is the midpoint of another side. So then the line segment PQ is parallel to which side?
AC.
AC,
PQ is parallel to AC and PQ is equal to
half of AC.
half
Half
of
of
AC. PQ is equal to half of AC. You see here? Till here we have finished. Go through the steps.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
ma'am, was starting half an hour. I had some network issues, ma'am, so I cannot able to write the question and answers, ma'am. At last, can you just show me that, ma'am? I'll just take the picture and write and send you, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. So for proofs, this is the standard. You need to write what is given, then what is to be proved, and then the proof. If you have any construction, you must write the construction. Construction is like joining the diagonal or any other construction. You should specify the construction here. So given to prove that construction and proof. This is from one triangle by using midpoint theorem. This is from the other triangle using midpoint theorem. Okay, but the second subdivision is to show that PQ is equal to SR. PQ is equal to SR. So see, what is PQ equal to? PQ equal to half AC. And what is SR equal to? SR is also equal to half AC. I've called the results A, B, C, and D. The two results here as A and B. The two results here as C and D. All right. So SR, how will you get SR as PQ is equal to SR? PQ is equal to SR is using B and D. Using B and D. PQ is parallel. PQ is equal to SR is using B and D because SR is half AC. PQ is also half AC. That means PQ is equal to SR. Both PQ and SR from B and D, both PQ and SR are equal to half AC. So that means PQ is equal to SR. Because both of them are equal to half of AC. Next, we need to show that PQRS is the parallelogram. We need to show that PQRS is the parallelogram. See here, from A and C. From A and C, what do you get? From A and C, SR is parallel to AC, PQ is also parallel to AC. Two lines are parallel to the same line, so then they are parallel to each other. So that means PQ is parallel to SR because both of them are parallel to AC. Two lines parallel to the same line are parallel to one another. PQ and SR are both parallel to AC. PQ and SR are both parallel to AC. So PQ is parallel to SR. They're parallel to one another. PQ is parallel to AC. SR is also parallel to AC. So PQ is parallel to SR. Now from 1 and 2, PQRS is a parallelogram. Because in the parallelogram, in the quadrilateral PQRS, we have this result. We have proved that PQ is equal to SR. And we have already also proved that SR is parallel to PQ. We proved that PQ is equal to SR and PQ is parallel to SR. So in quadrilateral PQRS, one pair of opposite sides is parallel and equal. Therefore, PQRS is a parallelogram. In a quadrilateral, when one pair of opposite sides is parallel and equal, it's a parallelogram. So PQ is parallel to SR proved in 1. PQ is equal to SR proved in 2. So PQRS is a parallelogram. Yeah, please write down, children. You don't have to write this. Given quadrilateral ABCD and the midpoints, you should write to prove whatever is asked to prove, write all that, and then the proof. Draw the diagram, that's important. Diagram important. Question, either give the reference number because it's NCERT or write the question. You can leave some place now, some 5 to 6 lines, you leave it for the question. Write the proof. The solution starts from given. Given to prove and proof.
I'm completed, ma'am.
So fast. Who's that? Who's that? Who's finished? Others, have you finished?
Yes, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Ma'am, 2 minutes, ma'am.
Ma'am, completed, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Next one. ABCD is a rhombus. PQRS are the midpoints of the sides AB, BC, CD, and AD respectively. Show that PQRS is a rectangle. All right. So ABCD is a rhombus. ABCD is a rhombus. Okay, ABCD is a rhombus. PQRS, I just connected the diagonals also, AC and BD. ABCD is a rhombus. So rhombus, all sides are equal. It's a parallelogram in which all sides are equal. I'll connect the diagonals. PQRS are the midpoints of the sides AB. So see here, P is the midpoint of AB. Q is the midpoint of BC. R is the midpoint of CD. S is the midpoint of AD. Show that PQRS is a rectangle. So this is PQRS. PQRS. We must show that this one is a rectangle. We must show that PQRS is a rectangle. Now for this, we need to connect any one of the diagonals of the outer quadrilateral. Now we have two quadrilaterals. Inside we have PQRS. On the outside we have ABCD. We should always connect the diagonal because we want triangles. So triangle, we are going to divide the quadrilateral into two triangles. But which quadrilateral? The outer quadrilateral. You must join the diagonal of the outer quadrilateral ABCD. So you can join either AB or you can either join AC or BD. The diagonals of PQRS, ABCD are not connected. We need to take up at least one diagonal. And diagonal should always be of the outer quadrilateral. So ABCD. ABCD is the outer quadrilateral. Connect AC. Or you can also connect BD. Any one. Now tell me, children, in triangle ADC, can you use the midpoint theorem or the converse of midpoint theorem? In triangle ADC, yes, in triangle ADC, children, tell me. What do you know? Yeah.
We can use midpoint theorem, ma'am.
Correct. We can use the midpoint theorem in triangle ADC. Tell me what is given.
Ma'am, in triangle ADC, S is the midpoint of AD, ma'am.
Okay, then.
And R is the midpoint of DC, ma'am.
Very good. Therefore, a midpoint theorem.
Therefore, we can say that RS is equal to the half of AC, ma'am.
RS is equal to half AC.
And RS is parallel to AC.
And RS is parallel to AC. Very good. Then what about the other triangle ABC? What can you say about ABC?
Ma'am, in ABC, P is the midpoint of AB and Q is the midpoint of BC, ma'am.
Okay.
So PQ is half of AC and PQ is parallel to AC, ma'am.
So from these two results, what do you get?
Ma'am, RS is equal to PQ and RS is parallel to PQ, ma'am. So PQ-RS is a parallelogram.
RS is parallel to PQ and RS is equal to, from these two results, from these two. So from what I've crossed, we get that RS is equal to PQ because both are equal to half AC. And from what I've ticked, we get RS is parallel to PQ because both are parallel to AC. So they're parallel to one another. RS is parallel to PQ. So like this, we have proved that in quadrilateral PQRS, The outer one, ABCD, is a rhombus. ABCD is given to be a rhombus, but PQRS is only a quadrilateral. We have to prove it's a rectangle. The outer one, ABCD, is given to be a rhombus. The inner one, PQRS, is only a quadrilateral. So now we have proved that PQ is equal to RS and PQ is parallel to RS. So in PQRS, one pair of opposites, see these two are marked. I've marked this and this. So in PQRS, PQ is parallel to RS and PQ is equal to RS. Therefore, PQRS is a parallelogram. How do you prove that it's a rectangle? A parallelogram in which one angle is a right angle is a rectangle. So we have proved that PQRS is a parallelogram. Next, we have to prove it's a rectangle. To prove it's a rectangle, you should either prove that that's a definition of a rectangle. What's a rectangle? A parallelogram in which one angle is a right angle is a rectangle. A parallelogram in which one angle is a right angle is a rectangle. Now we proved that PQRS is a parallelogram. Next, we have to prove that one angle is 90 degrees. So PQRS is a rectangle. For that, you should join the other diagonal BD. Let us prove that this one is a parallelogram. You can either prove this is a parallelogram, or this one is a parallelogram, or you can prove this is a parallelogram, or you can prove that this one is a parallelogram, any one of these four. So supposing you want to prove that this one is a parallelogram. Okay, you want to prove that this is a parallelogram. So we'll see how to prove that this one is a parallelogram. So once you prove that this is a parallelogram, we know that opposite angles are equal. Now here, this is 90 degrees. Why is this 90? Because ABCD is a rhombus. Diagonals meet at right angles. ABCD is a rhombus. ABCD is a rhombus. So the diagonals AC and BD meet at right angles. So this one is 90 degrees. So since when you prove that this one is a parallelogram, opposite angles are equal. So this also is 90 degrees. So like this, we prove that in PQRS parallelogram, one angle is a right angle. So it's a rectangle. We have to prove that this one is a parallelogram. We prove that this is a parallelogram. Since this is already 90 degrees, this also will be 90 because opposite angles are equal in a parallelogram. Once you get this is 90 degrees, in PQRS, which is a parallelogram, you prove that one angle is a right angle, so it's a rectangle. So now to prove that this is a parallelogram, we already know that these two sides are parallel. We already know that this is parallel to this. Because we proved that RS is parallel to AC. We have proved that RS is parallel to AC by midpoint theorem. So if RS is parallel to AC, then this portion also will be parallel to this portion. Any part of RS will be parallel to any part of AC. If two lines are parallel, now here RS is parallel to AC. Any portion of RS will be parallel to any portion of AC. Now let's prove that this is parallel to this. Let's prove that this is parallel to this. Again, by using midpoint theorem, you need to take up the triangle ABD. In triangle ABD, what is that information you have in ABD?
Ma'am, SP is half of DB.
So what given? In triangle ABD, what do we have? S is the midpoint of AD, then?
AB, P is the midpoint of AB, ma'am.
Okay, then?
So SP is half of DB and SP is parallel to DB, ma'am.
Yeah, correct. So if SP is parallel to DB, this is a part of SP will be equal to a part of BD. This is BD. This is some part of B. This is some part of BD. This is some part of SP. So these two sides are also parallel to one another. So like this, we prove that this one is a parallelogram. This one is a parallelogram. And since this is 90 degrees, the opposite angle, this also will be 90 degrees. So now PQRS is a parallelogram in which one angle is a right angle. So it's a rectangle. Write down, children. As you write, you can please look at the figure and understand what you're writing. Any doubts you can ask me. Oh, here I think proved in a different way. 1 minute. Have I given the OR proof? Okay, I've explained in a different way, but here there's a different proof. Okay. Here I've proved differently, children, but I explained something else. Okay. Till here. Yes, start writing. Start writing, I'll tell you. I don't want to explain a different proof and confuse you, but we will do this in the next class. Okay. I hope you finished writing till here. PQRS is the parallelogram.
One minute, ma'am.
Ma'am,
1
1
minute.
minute, ma'am.
Okay. Is it over, children?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, 1 second, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, completed, ma'am.
All right. Now, I'll just tell you what is here so that I'll show the slide. You can take a screenshot and complete it later. Now, see here, children. Now, we are here actually. PQRS is a parallelogram. We have proved that PQRS is a parallelogram, correct? PQRS is a parallelogram. Correct? But you have to prove that PQRS is a rectangle. Now, angle 1 is equal to angle 2. Angle 1 is equal to angle 2 because is AB equal to AD? Is AB equal to AD? You must say yes because ABCD is a rhombus, all sides are equal. AB is equal to AD. AB is equal to AD because it's a rhombus, all sides are equal. Then if AB is equal to AD, then half of AB will be equal to half of AD. Half of AB will be equal to half of AD. Half of AB is AP because P is the midpoint, AP. Half of AD is AS. So we get a new result. AP is equal to AS. That means triangle APS is isosceles. Therefore, angle 1 is equal to angle 2. AB is equal to AS. Rhombus, all sides are equal. Half of AB is equal to half of AD. Half of AB is AP. And half of AD is AS. AP is equal to AS, we get a new result. Therefore, angle 1 is equal to angle 2. Isosceles triangle property. Now here, you can, now it's time, I can't explain that fully, but I'll tell you what it is. These two triangles are congruent. And hence CPCTC, you will get angle 3 is equal to angle 4. See how the triangles are congruent later. These two triangles are congruent to each other. Therefore, you will have angle 3 is equal to angle 4, CPCTC. So we have proved that 1 is equal to 2 and 3 is equal to 4. Now, what is angle 1 plus 5 plus 3? What is angle 1 plus angle 5 plus angle 3? 180 degrees. What is 2 plus 6 plus 4?
180 degree.
180 degrees. 1 plus 5 plus 3 is 180 because sum of the angles on a straight line is equal to 180. Similarly, 2 plus 6 angle 2 plus angle 6 plus angle 4 is also 180. Sum of the three angles on a straight line is equal to 180. You can cancel angle 1 and 2 on both the sides because they're equal. We proved that 1 is equal to 2 by isosceles triangle property. You can cancel 3 and 4 on both the sides because we have proved that 3 is equal to 4. The triangles are congruent. CP, CTC, angle 3 is equal to angle 4. So we get a new result. Angle 5 is equal. You cannot cancel 5 and 6. We don't know that they are equal. So now we get that result. Angle 5 is equal to angle 6. Angle 5 is equal to angle 6. We get the result. Angle 5 is equal to angle 6. This angle 5 is equal to angle 6. But PQRS we proved is a parallelogram here. We proved it's a parallelogram. And we know that adjacent angles are supplementary. 5 plus 6 is equal to 180, we know. But 5 is equal to 6. 5 plus 6 is 180 and 5 is equal to 6. That means angle 5 is 90 degrees. Because they're equal and they're supplementary. 5 is equal to 6, meaning they're equal. Angle 5 is equal to angle 6 and they're supplementary because they're the adjacent sides of a parallelogram. Adjacent angles of a parallelogram. So you get angle 5 is equal to 90 degrees. Like this also you can prove that in PQRS, one angle is a right angle, so it's a rectangle. Now take a screenshot, children. Complete the rest of the proof. I'll just include by the next class, I'll include the other one also, which I explained. So you can write that in the next class. I don't have that method here. That slide. So next class, you can write down that one. So how many of us are there at the end of the session? All right, children. Class, use the emoji, raise your hand. Lower your hand and raise your hands again. Yeah, now raise your hand. So see, only 10 of us are there at the end of the meeting. Nivedita, Shivani, Ananya, Sangamitra, Tarun, Vasudevan, Pratiksha.
It's not raising for me, ma'am. Don't know why.
Okay, Kanishka and
This one, now only it's able to.
all right. All right, children, please submit your classwork. That's it for today's session. Thank you. You may leave the room.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, children. Thank you.
Ma'am? Ma'am?
Yeah, 1 second, 1 second.